Hello, and welcome to Impacto AZ, a podcast dedicated to centering the Latinx voice on important issues of the day. I'm your host, Jonathan Higuera, here along with co-host Juan Rodriguez, and today we have an interesting show featuring Raul Aguirre, a business owner and political consultant strategist from Tucson, Arizona. He's been doing it a long time, and we're really looking forward to getting his thoughts and perspective on many issues. Most importantly on politics right now, because he has been involved in a lot of political campaigns in some form or another, but also learning more about him and his professional accomplishments. Welcome, Raul. So good to have you here today.
Great to be with you guys. Thank you, Jonathan, for the invitation. And Juan, happy to be here.
Okay. One of the things I was excited about today is that I've known you since the 1990s when I worked and lived in Tucson for about 8 years. And I quickly learned when I was there that you were a mainstay in Tucson in terms of being an ardent supporter and advocate for the Latino Chicano community there. And now here we are this many years later, and you're still doing it. You're still at it. You're still supporting candidates, community initiatives. So let's learn a little bit about what's on your plate. So let's start with that. What are you working on these days that you want to share with us that you think it's important for our viewers to hear about?
You know, in our pre-conversation, first of all, good to be here. And I hope you continue to grow an audience because I think a Latino Chicano audience is necessary. I remember with my days with Univision, I used to pitch him incessantly about doing a nighttime show, a late night show for Chicanos and Latinos on television, which is still not there. We should have one. The late night shows are key for that information. So I did a lot of radio and I did a lot of late night radio where you can open the lines and people will call you from all over the place. And being in Tucson as the center of the mythological land of Aztlan, right? People will be surprised that, Puerto Ricans will call, Salvadorians will go, where are you getting? Well, this is a microcosmos, right, of people. But I think that the conversation is very key. So one of the things that I'm always talking about, and I go to colleges and universities to speak, and also corporate reunions, corporate events, and I not only talk about the purchasing power of Latinos and Chicanos, but truly identity, culture, politics, the opportunity to highlight what a powerful force we are as a people, right? And how we've been able to, in the last at least 5 decades that I've been very active, to be able to transform our communities in so many ways. We're still battling many things, particularly now in the political arena. So one of my main interests in the last 20 years is to mentor young people, And I think the crop of, if I can call it a crop of Chicanas leaders like Regina Romero, who's now the mayor of Tucson, Lane Santa Cruz, who is a city councilwoman and also vice mayor. When you talk about Andres Cano, Pima County Board of Supervisor, we work with Richard Elias, who passed away a while back, another leader, with Raul Grijalva, who also just recently passed. And of course, Adelita Grijalva, who is now our first Chicana congresswoman. So we're very happy to be doing a lot of that, while conversely working with the business community also. Because we have
Because you are a business owner, we should remember,
I am a business,
right?
yeah. My company is REA Media Group. I'm going to say that it's the oldest, right now is the oldest existing multicultural agency in the state of Arizona. My brother Ray Arvizu started around the same time, almost like 2 months after, I think, or months
here in Phoenix, right?
Phoenix,
right?
I don't think he's any longer in the game, but he still does a few things.
And you beat him by 2 months, right? You started just a little bit before his.
Watch Ray call you. What? No, I got the dates wrong.
Okay.
Well, anyway, saludos to my brother Ray. But
well, that's what I love, that you do bring that business perspective along with that advocacy work that you do, so you're really grounded in what you're proposing and what you support. So getting to that, what was your role with the Adelita Grijalva campaign? Where everyone, obviously that's in the news right now, national news. Tell us a little bit more of what you're seeing and hearing about that.
Yeah, I thought about it because my involvement is in a variety of ways. One of the things as a community leader that is dedicated to Chicano empowerment in all areas, political, cultural, community, corporate. That's my involvement is to be able to bring those things together to a candidate such as Adelita, whether it's in the background or in the forward, in the foreground. And some of the involvement, of course, is grassroots. I am lucky that this community in southern Arizona, ranging from Nogales and people that we know in Yuma and Douglas, which is District 7, I have uh, some good impression. I have a good reputation. People know that I'm not going to mislead them, and that I've been a public servant in that way for many years, not just as a broadcaster, but also as a business owner, as a educational leader, promoting more education for our community. So that's me. My involvement is around those areas where I can say to people, vote for Adelita Grijalva. She's truly a progressive voice. She's going to be our voice in Congress. And I'm lucky that people listen to me. And so that's a lot of what I've been able to do for this particular campaign.
And what's the mood right now, seeing that she has not been seated formally as a congresswoman? What's the mood among her supporters in that district and in Tucson overall with that whole controversy?
Well, I live in the district, and I'm, really disappointed that the Republican Party can be so vindictive that they try to keep her away from taking office. Obviously, this is taxation without representation, and the mood is very, yeah, well, we're frustrated. I think the mood of the district citizens is enough is enough. You need, and they're calling, and they're calling everybody. They're calling Congressman Cisco Mani and saying, "Hey, do something about it." Of course, Mark Kelly and Ruben Gallego have already come out in support of Adelita and have been asking Speaker Johnson to do the right thing. So it's very frustrating for people, for us to see that these people do not care about the country, they care more about the party. And I'm sure this is the most frustrating thing for Adelita, that three other congressmen have been seated pro forma, and she has not. So it's very frustrating and disappointing also
Hmm.
that they're doing this.
Okay. And did I understand that your daughter is the chief of staff of Adelita's campaign? Or did I mishear that?
No, it's correct.
Okay.
As you know, my daughter Marisol Flores Aguirre was governor's the Southern Arizona director for, I think, almost 2.5 years or 3 years. Well, I'm not sure about the time, but yeah. And then she started working on the campaign. Obviously, right now she has really no staff, so
Yeah.
I
You
don't
can't
know.
call her that exactly when they haven't
Yeah,
taken the seat
yeah.
yet, but you must be proud of her though. That's a pretty important position to have for our only Latina congresswoman from Arizona ever. So that is awesome.
Absolutely, and Marisol, who used to, she has uh, a master's degree in business, so she's been teaching at the Elder College before, and then she was a senior policy advisor for Regina Romero when she was a council person and help her with the campaign for mayor. And so she's also been very involved in human rights and in LGBTQ rights and a lot of variety of progressive issues. So she really has a great panoramic view of politics and Latinos and Latinas and Chicanos as a whole. So yeah, very proud of
Okay.
her. She'll
That's
do a
a
great job, I'm sure.
that's a good segue into what I wanted to ask next. But before I do that, Juan, is there something maybe you wanted to ask related to this topic,
Well,
Adelita?
I want to go back to Adelita's situation, and you mentioned Congressman Cisco Mani. Um, is there any reason why, or has he been effective? Do we know if he's reached out to Speaker Johnson about swearing in? Has he made any comments publicly?
I don't believe that he's made any comments publicly in support of her being, recognized as a congresswoman. So, and being seated. But I know that we have been urging him to do the right thing.
Right.
Because after all, he's a migrant, and he's kind of a. I think he's in an interesting position as a Republican Latino,
Yeah. Oh, I
and
understand. Yeah. Yeah. It,
so
yeah.
he really needs to do that more publicly, but he has not, as far as we know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I met him briefly in 2022 when he was campaigning. I met him out at University of Arizona, the Hispanic Alumni Association.
Mhm.
They had their gala out there, and I saw him there, and I went up and said hello, and I introduced him to some people I was with, and uh, he went from, in my opinion, what seemed to be a moderate Republican to a all-embracing member of the MAGA sphere. So a little disappointing, but I'm hoping that he comes around and advocates for Adelita, and not just when he advocates for Adelita, he's advocating for the community. So
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's our position, and
mhm.
I mean ours is the community. I mean, we. When Cisco Money came to town, let me go back. I was the former chairman of the Tucson Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. I was one of the original people who founded the Hispanic Chamber with our efforts with many other people. I won't take credit for being the only one. There's a lot of us that used to do carne asadas. It was just five of us, and the same
Wow.
people until we really grew it. And then he came to work for us. He came to work
Oh,
for the Hispanic Chamber. And then I guess he met Governor Ducey, and then he changed his affiliation. There is a lot of disappointment, I think, in the community because while we do not begrudge him being a Republican and how he started as a moderate Republican, for him to be taking selfies with Marjorie Greene and the rest of the MAGAs was very disappointing to a lot of people in the community who know him and know that he's not that person. but
mm,
but unfortunately, given the political climate as it is, he felt that he needed to endorse Trump and endorse the MAGA movement, and I think that's something that is going to come back and affect him negatively, not just across the Chicano diaspora of voters in his district, but everyone else, particularly because I vote to reduce funding for Medicare and Medicaid.
That's good. I'm glad we brought that topic up. And I do want to continue talking about politics. But it occurred to me also, Raul, that you were such a pioneer looking back through your bio in Tucson radio, Tucson media. I want our audience to know a little bit more about you as well personally. Like, I don't know where you were born and raised. What were some of your key moments in life that helped you become the Raul Aguirre you are today? Uh, Shed a little light on that for us, if you will, so our audience can get a sense of some of the things in life that helped you become what you are today.
Yeah, I grew up on the border, Nogales, and both sides. And so I call myself a Chicano Bordeño. I'm a Chicano by choice, right? Because I think most people who place their identity within that Chicano identity, we're very serious about, empowering our people. Regardless, and so my identity was formed there during particularly the 70s, because there was a lot of unrest, between the Rolling Stones, Santana, El Chicano, and the Vietnam War. There was a lot of interesting things happening. So when I moved to Tucson and went to Pueblo High School, That's why I have a PhD, man. I have a high school diploma.
Pueblo warriors, right?
Yeah, and I have two PhDs. I'm also a Pachuco highly developed. So, there's two PhDs right there. And so I've always, I started incidentally working with Raul Grijalva when they were trying to get El Rio Neighborhood Center. They were going to demolish that area and turn it into a golf field. And so we started working to make it a community center. So El Rio was a catalyst. So then I started working with Manso Area Council, which was working for immigration and then the deportation of Salvadorians. At the time, then I was on the radio. My main motivation, I was working as a part of a cuadrilla helping Cesar Chavez in the boycott of the grapes. So we were shutting down liquor stores that were selling Gallo wine. We were going to Safeway and creating havoc. I had a lot of friends that we were doing this. And then we decided to start Mecha again at the University of Arizona. My friend Gustavo Magru and myself started Mecha that had been dead because Raul Grijalva and Sal Valdenegro, the two Chicano activists, were kicked off at a school. So when we got there in 1974, we restarted this group, and the Mechista movement took on Cesar Chavez, activism. And then we decided one night as we were cruising down 6th Avenue in Tucson that there was no media. And we were being spit upon. The women were being grabbed, and we couldn't fight because it was a non-violent movement. That didn't mean that we didn't go look for those guys afterwards, but we were nonviolent, so we couldn't do that while we were protesting. So we decided, what if we had a radio program? What if we did things? So we went to KUAT radio, and he started doing some music, and I started doing a show called Prendiendo la Mecha, which was like the early podcast, interviewing people and talking truth to power, man, asking why are you not recruiting Chicano students? Why is it that the community is 12% Chicano and we are only like 90 Mexican-American Chicanos in the school?
The entire school?
There were over 400 Latin American and Central American students, and we were like 90. So we were questioning that. But then we realized that the reach was very small. So we were cruising down 6th Avenue, and we heard this FM station that was playing like trio music and, Javier Solis, all these goodies in Spanish. And so we decided to go and pitch Ernesto Portillo, who was the owner of KXCW FM and KXCW AM. And I pitched him, we both pitched him about doing this programming. And then there was a guy, a sales guy there. His name is Bob Feynman. We called him El Judío Maravilloso. And he was a sales guy. So he kind of saw the opportunity, and he was kind of went to bat for us. And he was doing a show on KWFM under the name Bob Allen. And he had a great voice. He was from New York, but he spoke Spanish and he loved salsa. So his only requirement was, if you're going to do a bilingual station, I'll support you with the radio management, but you need to put salsa into your.
Okay.
So I said, sure. So, we knew Tito Puente.
So the Fania All-Stars started getting airtime in Tucson, huh?
Yeah, and Celia Cruz, that was it. But then he got us into, Roberto Roena, and we started talking about Cheo Feliciano, and all those guys. I got to go to New York and meet them and talk to them, and they did spots for me.
Oh, wow.
So my career as a pioneer of bilingual media, I also did a bilingual programming, incidentally called Fiesta at KUAT. I remember getting to the set, and they had ristas de chile hanging and sombreros and zarapes, and I go, what is this? Take all that stuff off. We're going to redo your set. And we did a more modern set, and I opened it up to the public so people would come and ask questions. So that's kind of my beginning from, I'm going to say 1974 to 1980. 82, 83, I worked a lot in the radio, broadcasting, media, and nightclubs.
And I also see that it led to jobs with Univision and Telemundo eventually, right? Is that I
Yeah,
saw that on
locally
your
I
bio?
did. I started with Telemundo doing some of their events and doing some kind of stringer stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Then I went
Mm-hmm.
to Univision and worked. I kind of ran the station because it's a small, Phoenix is the big hub. But yeah, I started working there and bringing in, did everything, sales, and
Mm-hmm.
I had a morning show and
And it sounds like you were unapologetically. I mean, a lot of us, as journalists, I had to always have this demeanor of nonpartisanship, right? That when I talked to people, didn't want to let on what I favored or whatever. I was just the news. You kind of came out of a different school where you sounds like you wore your feelings on your sleeve, right? You could be an advocate for Chicanos, Latinos, and that's kind of cool. I really appreciate that.
Well,
But
I think we needed that kind of representation. That was my take. For example, when I started in Spanish radio, they would just go to the AP, rip the news, and then translate whatever some non-Latino person wrote, right? So I was always going, wait a minute. The same thing with Arizona Daily Star. I would say,
mhm.
you just translated somebody else's opinion that sometimes went contrary to who we were. I mean,
Hmm.
and the broadcasters did not notice that they were saying, well, Latinos are, if you are raised by your mother only, you're going to have, all these problems. And I would go, wait a minute, that's kind of very
Hmm.
stereotypical. So that's how I started doing broadcasting. And maybe, yeah, I was editorializing a lot, and I had editorials on the radio that Spanish radio had never taken a position on immigration.
Hmm.
That was hardcore, that was pro raza in that way. And also the cultural part to talk about, to bring in Luis Valdez and interview him, to interview Cesar Chavez, Daniel Valdez from Teatro Campesino. I interviewed Rosalind Carter. Heck,
Oh,
I,
wow.
I just remember I interviewed a young uh, Robert Kennedy Jr.
Oh,
when he
wow.
was campaigning for his uncle.
Hmm.
And I
Oh,
remember
wow.
when he lost me was when he said, "And if my uncle wins, we will have a lowrider caravan through, Washington." And I went, "Oh man,
That's not going to happen.
that's not going to happen,"
Huh?
and that's pandering. And
Yeah,
so
politics.
actually, Neto Portillo and I did that interview. I remember, and so
We're talking about RFK Jr., the one who is now our
yeah,
Health and
the
Human
health,
Services Secretary. Oh my
yes,
gosh! Wow.
that guy, that
Yeah.
guy.
Yikes. Well, let's move this forward. That's a beautiful history, by the way, and one I hope
It is.
everyone can learn and listen to and get a sense of. Um, so now we're fast forwarding to today, and here you are kind of doing similar work, but in a very different environment, the digital age. What's going on there in Tucson? Who are the races we need to be watching? What is going on with with politics and community in Tucson that we should really hone into and focus in on?
Yeah, and I think it goes beyond. Tucson is the big influence in southern Arizona.
Hmm.
Cochise County is a little bit more conservative, but Nogales, Yuma, I mean, Adelita won Nogales, I think, by over 70% of the vote. I mean, her whole voting was 69, almost 70%. So the community, I think, is more mobilize. Not that it hasn't been, because it's always been a very progressive. And I wrote an article for the Arizona Daily Star, an opinion that I said this demonstrates that Adelita Grijalva has the pulse of the community, in particular as a public servant. I don't see her as a politician. I really, when you serve 20 years in the Tucson Unified School Board or any board of education with no pay, it is a very difficult position. I mean, mis respetos. You have to respect the public service, and Adelita has done that. So, as a whole, and she's the leader of the political sphere, I believe, in southern Arizona. So, but you have, again, other notables, like Andres Cano is going to have to run for Board of Supervisors in 2026. Because he is taking, he took the position when Adelita left. So he's just finishing her
Her
term.
term.
Adelita's finishing her dad's term, Raul, who passed away in March and left a big hole in our hearts and also in the community because he was a great man. So she's going to have to run. And then you have the District 21, Rosana Gabaldon and Stephanie Hamilton, two other notable races that I think are going to be pretty important. And the governors. I mean, we have to really concentrate on what Governor Hobbs is going to be doing. And we like for her to move a little bit more to progressive politics because at this time, I think she's gone a little beyond moderation as far as I'm concerned. And I think, we need to have bigger representation than just Maricopa County. And we had a meeting with her, and she was very gracious. And I asked that question: "What can we do?" Because truly, the importance of Southern Arizona should not be minimized. I think.
Were you happy with her answer that she gave you when you asked?
Well, she understands. She's a politician and a public servant. That Maricopa County holds the votes and the money. So I don't blame her for being a practical person. But she did. As a matter of fact, as we mentioned earlier, my daughter Marisol was her district director, and she did great by us. I mean, she brought the governor probably 16, 19 times in 2 years. I don't think Governor Ducey was in Southern Arizona more than 2-3 times, and mostly for a gala or a dinner. He never got into the community, and Marisol was able to work with the governor to take her to Yuma and meet with people, take her to Nogales, to Douglas, and also with the Arizona-Mexico Commission, which was also a big, as you know, it was a big controversy, but it changed and it made it better. I think our Mexican counterparts are very happy with how things are working, and us as well here, because it was a great work to turn it around in terms of doing more. So in those areas, Governor Hobbs has done, I think, a great job. But
now you also have another star or up and coming star over there in your mayor, Regina Romero. Is her term coming to an end? Does she run again? Do you know anything about her future plans?
She's got 2 more years, I believe. Is it 2 more years? Yeah, I think she's got 2 more years. Well, if you ask me, I think she will make a great governor. Honestly, I think Regina Romero, as we speak, she's heading to some national conference of governors. She was, I think, chair of the governors, now the mayors conference. So she has the chops. She's smart. She's very diligent. She's hardworking. She comes from farm working roots. She's from Somerton, and her parents were farm workers. She knows what hard work is. She understands, the populations of working class Americans, not just Chicanas and Latinos and us, but she understands how people think because, she's lived it. And right now, if nothing else, we need to pay more attention to working class Americans. We need to pay more attention to the middle class, which is diminishing slowly, but no, I will say not slowly. I think it's diminishing greatly.
Yeah, the affordability question is coming up over and over, as we're seeing in that New York City mayor's race.
Yeah,
and that's kind of spreading out. Any thoughts, Juan, on maybe Regina Romero, or any other questions coming to mind?
In regards to the mayor, I mean, I've heard nothing but remarkable things about her. Having worked in Tucson and working with different organizations there, I don't think I've ever heard anything negative. And her staff reflects that as well. She has excellent constituent services. She's she's part of what I call Tucson royalty, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that she's respected. Um, and it's interesting that you mentioned her running for governor. Um, that's high praise, and I think if you say that enough, it's going to plant a seed in people's minds.
She's ready. I think she's she was a city councilwoman for 12 years.
Right.
And she was also, when she ran for mayor, I remember the guy that was running against her had been one term as a state representative. And people were telling me, why are you supporting Regina Romero when this guy is so qualified? And I said, she's been running for 12 years.
Yeah.
The Tucson government. What do you mean she's not qualified? So we still are facing, as I do consulting work and with our own people, that kind of feeling and that kind of opposition that they don't think that they're qualified, and it's so demeaning and it's so frustrating to me because here you see this wonderful young woman with intellect, with hardworking capacity, industrious. She's proven herself over and over again, and people say, "Going, I don't know," and it's really unnerving. And for example, we just ran Celina Barajas, our other councilman, Richard Fimbres, retired.
Yes.
Celina Barajas, a young woman, graduated from UCLA, a city planner. I mean, she's got all these chops, right? And people are going, well, no, these people are ready. And to me, I'm smiling because it gives me great pleasure to work with them and show up for them and raise money for them and give them advice. I'm just excited about the future of Latinas and Chicanas, moving into these positions across the country. When I see, some Tejana, Chicana, Latina running for governor in Texas, I'm excited about that.
Oh, it's very exciting, and and also if the mayor does run and moves up to wherever, Tucson's in good hands. There's a qualified pool for succession there.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
and a lot of it has to do with the work that you and others have put in for a generation. I mean, this is the payoff.
Right.
Yeah, well, we had a conversation with the provost at the University of Arizona about doing away with the cultural centers, right? Which was still functioning, but they took away the heads. They put them somewhere else. And I was saying to her, the university is destroying 6 decades or more of work by our community. We did it. The university, we had to push them and shove them and argue with them and demonstrate and do marches so they could do this, not just for us, because there's an African American and Asian, Native American, and Chicano Study Center. And I was saying, the name of Adalberto Guerrero, which is the center at the Cesar Chavez building. I mean, the man is 93 years old. He's still here. So when we had a meeting, I brought him to the meeting. And I introduced Patricia Perlock, is her name, to Adalberto Guerrero. And I said, this is the man. This is the man that building is named after. He's still here. Incidentally, Beto Guerrero, as a professor of Spanish at the University of Arizona, along with Maria Urquides and also Henry Oyama, in 1960 plus, President Johnson asked them to do a deep dive into the education of Chicanos in America. And they wrote a seminal paper called Mexican Americans, the Forgotten Minority. So this gave way to bilingual education, which started nationally at Tucson Unified District because of those 3 people. So there's this man who's 93 years old, still, bien fuerte, movido, he's just shaking it. And then I introduced him, and she genuinely, I saw her go, oh my God, I know what you mean. and looked at this guy and shook his hand and met Dr. Macario Saldate, who was the first director of the Chicano studies at the University of Arizona, who's also in his late 80s, brought him together. And I think the university all of a sudden said, wow, well, at least she seemed very impressed. And then we talked about the compact, and we said, you have to tell the president that this is unacceptable.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because that was going to be one of the questions on my list before we have to wind this down. That how do you feel about that decision to reject the compact from the Trump administration, which would have probably eliminated all DEI policies and programs and
Right.
guidelines for the university?
Well, you cannot. I wrote an article called "Cowing to Coercion," limiting academic freedom at the university, state universities. I think Michael Crow is doing the right thing, and because he's saying, I'm going to convene people and I'm going to talk to them and I'm going to see, what are you talking about making us do all these things? I think the president did the right thing. And we're going to take it as a win. I think the provost took the message from our community and said, you can't do it. Regina Romero, her leadership, also the city put out a statement saying you cannot, the University of Arizona should not and cannot accept the compact because, it was also rejected by the majority of the faculty at the UMA. You cannot give in to coercion, to blackmail, and also all these loose things that I'm going to give you if you do this. But basically, Jonathan, what you were saying, they were trying to do away with everything has to do with diversity, with inclusion. And we worked too hard for too many decades.
I think that's a good endpoint for our show today. I would like to thank you, Raul, for being on here and sharing your time and your expertise. Juan, thank you also. And I would also be remiss if I didn't remind our audience that Ron Hoyos is our technical director, audio engineer, and he makes sure these videos sound good and look good. So with that, I urge you all to like and subscribe to our channel, Impacto AZ, on YouTube, and so we can continue bringing you great content like this. So with that, thank you all.